Last week I made a video about an interview that was held with James Cameron, Zoe Saldana and Sam Worthington, and although the interview was only 1 minute long, we now have the full 10-minute interview, which gives us a bit more information on Avatar Fire and Ash. Avatar Theory here, hope you're doing well and having a fantastic day. And the video interview comes from Rotten Tomatoes trailers, which I will leave a link to in the description and the pinned comment below, and I highly recommend you watch the interview for yourself. Like I said, it is 10 minutes long, but it is an interesting interview to watch nonetheless. Now, the first minute of the interview, they essentially talk about the meaning of the title, which I already broke down in a previous video if you want to check that out, so I'm not going to go over that again. But it is just funny to point out that James Cameron says the reason they didn't have a final title for the third Avatar movie is because he couldn't make up his mind.
Yeah.
Of Avatar.
It's only a big deal because we didn't have a title. And we only didn't have a title because I couldn't make up my damn mind.
Cameron then talks about essentially the magic of Avatar and how it makes people feel connected to the world, how it makes them feel on a deeper level, if you will. And we've all had that feeling when watching Avatar and The Way of Water, where you feel somewhat connected to the world. And Cameron mentions how they captured the audience with the first two movies and how he essentially wants to do that again with the third movie. The interviewer then asks Zoe Saldana and Sam Worthington where we meet their characters in Avatar Fire and Ash, and Zoe essentially talks about how her character Neytiri will be affected from the events of The Way of Water, because as we know, she does lose her firstborn, and that obviously has an emotional impact on her, which makes me wonder, are we gonna see a side of Neytiri that we've not yet seen before? Perhaps a more rageful side? Maybe she has so much anger and hate towards Quaritch. I mean, she already has so much hate toward him, but after what happened to Netem, we might see a more aggressive side of Neytiri, but of course she will also be more protective over her family, because Zoe Saldana also mentions the line of the Sullys stick together, and I honestly hope we do get that line in the movie. Now, the interviewer does ask the same question to Sam Worthington, essentially where we meet his character in the third movie, and the first answer he says is quite interesting. He says, I think it's underwater, and shortly thereafter he says that he's not sure how much he's allowed to say, whereas James Cameron starts to interrupt him and then basically takes over the conversation, kinda giving me the impression that Sam Worthington was not supposed to mention that we'll meet his character underwater, because I can imagine a scene of the movie starting and we see Jake underwater connected to the spirit tree where we ended The Way of Water, and obviously my guess would be the reason he would be connected to the spirit tree is because that is his only way to communicate with Netem, and as such we will see Netem in the third movie, but not in the way we think, as he's definitely not coming back to life. But with Jake connecting to the spirit tree, we will see him this way. So I do wonder how that will affect not only Jake but Neytiri as well, because they eventually have to let go of the past to move on. The interviewer then asks about new areas that we're going to explore, and James Cameron confirms what he's already mentioned in previous interviews, that we will in fact see two new clans and explore their areas, as he talks about the new clan we met in The Way of Water, that being the Metkayina, and how we explored their world. Now, the two new clans that we're gonna meet in Avatar Fire and Ash is of course the Ash clan, as well as the Wind Traders, or the Wind clan in layman's terms. So it'll be interesting to see how much time we're gonna spend in each of their environment and how that's gonna add to the story, add to Pandora, because he also briefly mentions Star Wars and how George Lucas essentially created a new biome on every planet. Like you have the desert planet, the city planet, the forest planet, the volcano planet. Everything is a different planet, but all of that can be found on Pandora, where you have a desert area, a volcanic area, a forest area, comparing it much to Earth. The interview then concludes about their characters evolving and changing through the movies, because Jake and Neytiri from Avatar The Way of Water is obviously different from the first movie, because there they had a family, they needed to be more responsible, whereas the first movie, it was just them in the Battle of the Hallelujah Mountains. So of course their journey going through Fire and Ash is going to evolve and change once again. And although this interview doesn't really give us that much more information that we already know, it is still a worthwhile interview to watch. James Cameron also mentions during the interview that the scripts for Avatar 4 and 5 is already written and that it's essentially in a vault somewhere. And although we've yet to see Avatar Fire and Ash, I'm already excited to see where the story goes to Avatar 4, 5 and beyond. But as mentioned, the interview itself is about 10 minutes long, and I really recommend you watch it, as it is an interesting interview to watch nonetheless. But what do you think about all this information that was talked about during this interview? Where do you think the characters of Jake and Neytiri will go through Avatar Fire and Ash? Let me know in the comments below, and for more Avatar content, have a look at the rest of my channel. Until next time, have a fantastic day and stay safe.